Mark Skaar on the Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox. Proud to bring in Mr. Tony Marsico. Tony, how are you?
Yeah. Hey, Mark. How you doing, buddy? Good to be alive and get the call from you today, so thanks.
Hey, awesome. And you have a new single called Sleepwalker. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tell me about how that song came about.
Wow, I wrote this song quite a few years ago, and I had it in my back pocket for a long time. And my band, the Cruzados, went into the studio about maybe 2 months ago to record a new EP. So I brought the song in, but we were at the final stages of making the record, and everyone was like, I don't think we need that one right now. And it was kind of late in the game to add another song. So I kind of agreed with him. It was kind of a little dramatic and moody, maybe, for what we were doing on this EP. So I said, okay, well, I'll just go in and record it myself. No problem. So we did that, and I called up my friend Carla Olson from the Textones to produce it, and it just happened. We just went in, knocked it out with it just happened fit. Jonathan Lee played guitars on it, great player, and Rob Cornell on drums. And not planned, we just did it. You know how things go on the spur of the moment. Sometimes it just works.
People need to get on YouTube because there's a video treatment for it.
Yeah, you should check that out. And I had fun making the video for Sleepwalker. I shot the whole thing on my cell phone. And when you make a video, you got to try and save money where you can. So I was looking for a location, an old house to shoot the video in. I wanted like a 1920s house. I thought it would go with the theme. And I just said, oh, to hell with that, man. I just remember my girlfriend Janelle had her old dollhouse down in our basement since she was a kid. So I shot the whole thing in the dollhouse. And so that's what you got on there on YouTube if you want to see it.
Isn't that amazing, Tony, the way you can do things now? Or so, what do the kids say? It's DIY.
It excites me more. Obviously back in the day when I was on major record labels, we had, ridiculous amount of money to spend on videos and this and that. But I get just as much of a kick out of going down in the basement and getting my cell phone and shooting a video as I did, with the big production and spending ridiculous amounts of wasted money. I like today, the way things are going.
And so you can get Sleepwalker on Bandcamp and all over the socials, and encourage people to pick that up. We're with Tony Marsico. We alluded to the new EP from the Cruzados, Land of the Endless Sun. It's out now.
We put out 2 new records. We put out Live in Marseille, France, from our last European tour. We put these 2 out because we were trying to get some new material together for Europe. We wanted to have these done, and we got the 2 new albums out right now. So that was really a good time doing that.
Yeah, and they sound great. I had a chance to listen to both of them, and fantastic.
I appreciate that. I don't know if you know, I got a new bunch of great guys with me that were friends from back in my other band, the Plugz days, and Ron Young, Lauren Molinaire from the Dogs, one of my old pals, Rob Cornell, and Mark Tremaglio on guitar. And I'm real happy, man. The guys are a great bunch of guys. And I think we really knocked this EP out. It was really cool.
Yeah, we played quite a bit of She's Automatic, the full length that came out a couple of years ago from the Cruzados. And it's been a fun ride, and we'll get on these 2 and play them on the radio.
Appreciate that.
Talk to me about these new songs. I think there's 5 or 6.
I could tell you now that one of the songs, Dead Inside, is going to be our first single. And they're all pretty much new songs. Dead Inside, Queen of the Quake was written for my old burlesque friend, Miss Kitten DeVille. Johnny Pay to Play is if you live in L.A., then you get the title. Back in my day, we never paid to play a club. The club paid you, and they paid you quite well. But somehow in the 80s, somebody got the idea, hey, let's make bands pay to play at the Roxy and the Whiskey A Go-Go, and that's what that song is about. Johnny Pay to Play. It's like you come to L.A. to make it. Next thing you know, here you are spending every cent you got and going under trying to make it go. Play at rock and roll club. So. Yeah.
Talking with Tony Marsico about the Cruzados and his new single, Sleepwalker. And I think where you first got on my radar was, and you probably hear this all the time, I grew up a metalhead, but I was always looking for different things on television in the 80s, and New Wave Theater would come on USA Network in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And among all the strangeness with Peter Ivers and everything else, here was the Plugz.
Man, that show was really out there, and I heard it's back on the air. I see commercials for it now, and it's streaming, I guess, everywhere. But that show was so ahead of its time. It was like uncut, raw, and every band in L.A. played on it. Fear to Circle Jerks, the Plugz, the Blasters, and it was so loosey-goosey. And Peter Ivers was an insane host, you know, who faced a tragic end in his life, unfortunately. But he was really on top of it and knew what was happening in L.A. at the time. This was the early 80s, around 1980, 81.
In the Wait, as soon as I heard it, I'll go and check that out. Somebody sent me both records, and I'm so thankful for my friend Dan in Minneapolis for burning me those records, because the Plugz records are hard to find.
Well, I'll tell you a little reference to In the Wait. You know, it's funny because when we cut the new Cruzados record, I have a song on the EP called A Little More Time, and it's definitely inspired from In the Wait. And even Lauren, our guitarist, said, man, that sounds like Plugz. I'm like, yeah, there's a good chance it could be, man. I played that song about 1 million times, and it's definitely inspired from my Plugz days.
And you also did a song on there called, I think it was called Elizabeth. Now, that was not on a record, right?
That was fun. We were doing some stuff with Spider Middleman back at the time, playing some sax, and Steve Berlin from Los Lobos. They used to both play live with us for a while. So for a while, it was like a bigger Plugz band than our usual trio. That was one of our songs we used to do in the live set, and it made it to New Wave Theater.
Talking with Tony Marsico, and of course, the Plugz morphed into the Cruzados.
That's right.
2 records, major label. What was that like in the mid-'80s?
It was a strange trip, but it was awesome. You know, Clive Davis signed us. We put out 2 albums on Arista, and it was kind of a wild ride. You know, for about 4 or 5 years, we just basically stayed on the road and kind of toured the world and had a great time, man. And unfortunately, we all imploded at the end from having probably too much of a good time, but I guess that's rock and roll, you know. So you've heard that story before.
Sure have.
Why tell it again?
So then you told me about the new guys, Tony, but tell me about the impetus for Cruzados kind of reanimating, if you will.
During the pandemic, I was stuck at home, and I was kind of losing my mind, just like everybody else was, never thinking I'm ever going to play again. Started thinking, life is short. What the hell am I doing? I felt like rocking again. So some of our best friends back in the day, Charlie Quintana from the original Cruzados, his best friends were in the band Little Caesar, an L.A. band, who were hot on the scene, you know. And I called up some of the guys from that band, and they make up the nucleus of the new Cruzados band. It's just old pals from the early 80s.
Let's go back to Sleepwalker for a minute. Do you think there might be a full-length album that might come from that style?
I don't know. You know, I just never planned. Like, Sleepwalker was just something fun. Like, hey, let's go to the studio this day. And I was kind of shocked about how much airplay and stuff I've been getting on it, and, you know, and Underground Garage and this and that and all these different stations playing. It's a total fluke, you know. Sometimes when you don't try and do stuff, it just kind of happens, and I think that's what happened with Sleepwalker. And you never know, I might go cut a few more tracks. I'm sure I will. I always like playing kind of that style that I did on that record, and I certainly love playing with the musicians that cut it with me. So maybe I'll write some songs when I'm over in Europe on tour, you know, driving around in the van, and give me something to do.
And now, post-COVID, it seems like concerts even are so expensive to attend, and somebody like Roger Daltrey is saying, I don't think The Who's ever going to tour in America again because the overhead is just obscenely expensive now.
Well, that's true, but in all fairness, you know, I used to play with Roger Daltrey. I did his solo tour, and that was a 5-piece, or maybe we had a 6-piece band. I'm not sure what that was. But I did just see The Who, and of course they sounded amazing, but they did have about 60 people on stage.
Yes, they do.
So that might account for some of the overhead.
Mm-hmm. Funny
you know?
how that works.
Yeah, you don't have to bring a full orchestra everywhere you go. So
yeah. Fair point. And I see that, Tony, that you posted some work you did with Bob Dylan.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of bootleg tapes going around from back in the early 80s. And I guess every year when the anniversary comes around, when I worked with him, and there's a Bob Dylan Center that opened up this year. It's been getting a lot of attention. And they have a little section in there about the Plugz and this and that, hooking up with Dylan. I used to make a lot of tapes back in the day of our rehearsals with Dylan. And, you know, I was a kid. I was like mid-20s. I never thought, like, hey, maybe Bob doesn't want me to record these rehearsals, you know? Mm-hmm. I just carried a boombox with me everywhere. I did it in the Plugz. I did it in other bands. And I let it just roll. And over a course of a year of working with him off and on, I accumulated many, many cassettes. Of course, none of them I have. The Dylan Center asked me if they could have them for the exhibit. I said, I don't know. You know, that's 40 years ago. I lost everything, you know. But luckily, there's people out there that found them, and they're on the internet. So someone actually sent me that tape of us at a rehearsal playing. I got that tape about 2 weeks ago. So it's amazing what you could find out there on YouTube and what fans manage to salvage and dig up.
Down the road, Tony, there'll be another full length from the Cruzados, right?
We'll be recording. Yeah, I'm always kind of writing stuff, and now with the band, I'm glad to have them involved in some of the writing, which is exciting, because I always like working in a group situation. It's not all about Tony Marsico. It's about being in a rock and roll band, something that I always wanted to do and never really wanted to be a solo performer. So we will be writing songs, and if things go good on our side, and just going to do what we do, keep on doing it, you know?
Tony, if people want to find you or the Cruzados and keep in touch, how can they best do that?
Well, there's always a website, just for kicks, thecruzados.com. I would say the best place to track us down, where we post stuff daily, is on Facebook. Just go to Cruzados, Cruzados, see what we're up to. We're posting the new releases. Want to look me up and say hi? I love replying and getting messages from folks about music and this and that, anything. So look me up on Facebook as well, just under my name, Tony Marsico.
Tony, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
That's Tony Marsico. I'm Mark Skaar. This is the Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox.